Let us move forward now, several centuries, to 1644, and we'll move further north in China, when the Manchus, a semi-nomadic people from northeast of the Great Wall, conquered the crumbling Ming state and established their own Qing, meaning pure, dynasty, which lasted for nearly 300 years. This would be the last imperial dynasty of China, ruling between 1644 until 1912. Their rule extended over a vast empire that grew to encompass territories in Central Asia, Tibet, and Siberia. The Manchus also established their hegemony over Chinese cultural traditions as an important means of demonstrating their legitimacy as Confucian-style ruler. What emerged through the Ming and then the Qing dynasties, and from the effort of a series of emperors, Yongle, Zheng Tong, Jia Jing, was one of the largest and most rigidly planned.
Okay, I know Professor Davis's pronunciation is adorable. What I wanted to point out was the Confucian basis. So this is also going to have a big impact on the architecture, particularly the layout of the architecture and how the planning develops a type of hierarchy throughout the architecture. This is particularly the case for the Forbidden City, where you have a very strict social hierarchy, which is based on Confucianism, that is guiding the planning of the entire Forbidden City. So definitely write the word Confucianism down.
Cities in Chinese history, and the final attempt to build such a city in Imperial China. The spatial configuration of Beijing capital was not an ad hoc measure, and the historian Zhang Fei Zhu has described how its spatial organization as a
Zhang Fei was a professor at the University of Melbourne. He's written a lot of really good papers on Chinese architecture. If you are researching this topic, let me see. This is spelling. Okay. Janfeizh.
spatial organization has a cosmological bearing. Zhu points to the combination of a classical spiritual arrangement that comes together with a symbolic spatial layout outlined in the Zhou Li, the rites of the Zhou dynasty. Although the origin of the classic is unknown, the text was rediscovered in the late Western Han dynasty over 2,000 years ago, but we can be sure that it is much older than that. Zhu points to a particular section of the Zhou Li, the Kaogongji, records of construction, in which one finds the earliest articulation of a city planning.
If you want to record down that title. So what Dr. Davis is pointing out is the historical basis for the architecture, which stretches back in time, many centuries. So it has a Confucian basis, there is a strong cosmological basis as well. And these things are laid out in books of rites and instructions on construction. So there's always this relationship between the cosmology and the building, the architecture, between the social hierarchy and the planning of the architecture. All these things are connected, and they're consciously connected by the builders of the Forbidden City as well. So you can think about something like the Forbidden City as a finely tuned cosmological vehicle or instrument that best guarantees or ensures the success of that particular dynasty. So they're doing everything in their power on earth to keep the heavens happy. Okay?
The Chinese classics. It states that the capital city should be a square with each side 9 li long and containing 3 gates. In the city, there shall be 9 north, south, and 9 east, west streets. The north-south streets shall accommodate 9 chariot ways. Together, they form a chessboard street pattern. On the left, or the east of the city, there shall be a temple of ancestors, and on the right, the west, an altar of land and grain. In the front, the south, there shall stand the emperor's audience halls and government ministries, while in the rear, the north, markets shall be located.
So you notice how there's not only a strict layout, but also directions according to the compass points. Yeah, that's also part of this cosmological attunement of the city plan.
So how does that look? Beijing follows the abstract and relational configuration of the model. The squareness, the 3 gates on the southern front of the capital city. And think about it, the south is actually at the top. This means that the city is oriented as if it has a front that faces the sun, the path of the sun. The emperor sits at the back, watching the sun over his empire. The symmetrical positioning of the gates and courtyards in this frontal area, and the asserted orthogonal structure in relation to the 4 cardinal points, the use of axes, domination of the north-south axis.
So if you look at the compass point at the bottom, everything's aligned according to that north-south axis. Yeah? So there's like an invisible north-south axis running through the center of the Forbidden City in Beijing. And then the Forbidden City is designed in 2 parts, outer and inner. So this is the beginning of the overall social and hierarchical divisions of space, particularly according to Confucianism.
And the articulation of the center with walls, and this elaboration of the southern front of the center oriented towards the sun, the front, are eminent in Beijing. This is an abstract ordering of spatial relations of the city that projected the classical tradition in a totality. Elsewhere in the Zhou Li, it says that it is the sovereign alone who establishes the states of the empire, gives to the 4 quarters their proper positions, gives to the capital its form and to the fields their proper division. He creates the offices and apportions their functions in order to form a center to which people may look. It is reminiscent of the idea of Tian Sha, all under heaven. In other words, the emperor is the architect that shaped the human world in the form of an empire and an imperial system.
I just want to point out the connection between the books of rites and Confucius, right? There's, I think, 5 Confucian classics, and at least one of them is the Book of Rites. You can write down the characters if you feel like it.
They define a spatial order with the 2 cardinal axes and a hierarchy between the center and periphery. This was a preordained duty conferred to emperors like Qianlong, pictured here. Here, where heaven and earth are in perfect accord, where the 4 seasons come together, where the winds and the rains gather, where the forces of yin and yang are harmonized, one builds the royal capital. The capital of the empire is not only a social and political center, but also a pivotal point that mediates and unifies the cosmos and the human world, sustaining a grand harmony of an entire universe. The Zhou Li, therefore, offers not only a description of what a capital city should be, but also an ideology of kingship with a spatial diagram of the center, the capital, the empire, and the cosmos. Home to the world's largest, oldest, and best preserved group of wooden structures, the Forbidden City is made up of 980 structures and is located in the heart of Beijing. Timber came from the forests in Hunan, Jiangxi, and Sichuan. It was floated down the main rivers, Yangtze, Han, and Gan rivers, onto the Grand Canal and north through Hebei to Beijing. To move
Just in case you wanted to see that map a little bit further. So there's 3 main rivers plus a network of canals that are delivering all the timber to Beijing and the Forbidden City in order for the place to be constructed. And there are 980 buildings, just short of 1,000. So if you're going to study the Forbidden City, could you study all 980? No. You would have to pick a couple, maybe one.
huge logs working in average winter temperatures of 3.7 degrees minus in centigrade, laborers created an icy surface by sloshing water in front of a sled so that the quarried sandstone and huge timber logs could be slid over rough ground. The Dogong roof structure, literally meaning cap or block, are a flexible and strong structure. But what is their secret? Bracket sets are created by placing a wooden block, do, onto a column to form a solid base. Another wooden bracket, gong, is then inserted into the do to support either a wooden beam or another gong. As multiple do-gong brackets are added, the weight of the roof compresses the joints and distributes the weight evenly throughout the structure. This way, individual
Just in case you want to see those timber joints a bit more clearly. So we have a series of basically nesting brackets that are sitting on top of each other. And again, it's timber joinery method, so we're not using metal nails. It's timber to timber. That has quite a lot of structural advantages because it gives the structure flexibility, which is important if you live in a place where there are earthquakes or severe storms. You need a flexible structure.
When brackets are added, the weight of the roof compresses the joints and distributes the weight evenly throughout the structure. This way, individual elements are not prone to splitting or cracking, and the system of interlocking beams cannot be shaken apart or shattered under stress. Adding new layers of brackets on top means that the dogong pieces need to be slightly modified. There are about 30 combinations with simple variations to create different structures, but the core principle remains identical throughout. The system creates an incredibly robust structure which sits lightly on the floor without needing to be sunk into the ground. It was believed that the more layers of brackets, the more superior the building.
So what's interesting about this structure is that it is sitting on the ground, not dug into the ground, which allows the building to just sort of delicately float, particularly if there's an earthquake.
The concept imagines the building itself like a tree. It absorbs the weight of the roof according to the same principle as a tree's branches connecting to the trunk. Consequently, the posts are load-bearing, and there is no need for the walls to bear the brunt of the structure's weight. It is both earthquake-proof and a highly tensile structure.